Hello everybody, and let's continue. Last time we talked about the picture, the graph I showed you here, and do you have a clear look? All right, and that's it. Okay, hold it, and I'll talk briefly about this one. Well, it seemed to me that the history of philosophy in the West is the only one that can be truly called philosophy. The reason for this is simple. It is the mother of science. It has the inquiry spirit and it has the methodology. This is how it landed, eventually gave birth to natural science. All other thinking thoughts, whatever spiritually, in the East or in the West, has no this function. They are just fancy talk. The Indoism, the Buddhist, the Chinese Xuanxue, or the Muslim part that's even later, they have all know this effect. Well, think about this way. If you say, what is a woman? You normally think about a woman should give birth to children, right? That's a major function. Well, that's how I define the philosophy. Like no Oriental mathematics, no Oriental logic. It's the same way. No Oriental philosophy. Philosophy is one, and only one. That's called philosophy. Although I'm thinking it's a sort of fading out, it's dying to some extent, but that's another case. I give you this picture. The purpose is to let you know that why I summarize this, because it's so important. That's the kind of thing I call it civilization of humankind. From this picture you can say I started from pre-Socratic times, as most generally people talk about that, since Thales, and he thinks water is everything. That's the start of philosophy, the first philosopher in ancient Greek times. Okay, then later on, there's a blah blah blah, many others, and till recent days. And I think the last figure, to my mind, is Jack Derrida. Some smaller ones like philosophy of science, like Tom Kuhn, like Popper, and some smaller philosophers. And on the language part, the American linguist, philosopher, linguist, Rorty, and or maybe we can include the current still living philosopher, Hilary Putnam. I think probably that's it. And also, from this picture, you can see how I summarize the absolutology and the instancology. And especially, you can note how the new philosophy, well, new system, landed in the two atmosphere of human brain, the left part and right part. And underneath is the absolute. But you see they are connected. So 1, 2, 3. You can call it 3 absolutes. 2 minor 1, 1 big one. Well, this is my today's major topic. I gave you a brief general introduction to the whole system. Okay, let me say this. The whole idea of absolutology and in Instancology is to change our views from seeking facts, seeking reality of the world. Since ancient times, for 2,500 years, basically all the philosophers are doing that. Change to function like. Now think about the world, or whatever in this part, it's a function. Actually, that's a part. This function, the understanding of it is everything. Function is not like the current explanation of functionism in the philosophy of mind. It's different from that. It's more fundamental, more deep. You can say it includes everything. And the most importantly, I want you to have this idea. For a function to function, it doesn't even need a structure or need something as a basis for it. You know, in philosophy of mind, we have the school called structural functionalism. It's not that. This function depends on the structure. The structure explains some part, and the function explains some other things. But it's still not the same thing. All right. Here, the function, you can for now just remember it. I'll explain more. It's much more deeper than what it is in the explanation of the mind. Okay? Alright, as a general introduction, I can say in this system, I mean absolutology and instancology included, combined. It has 5 categories, as I said before. They are the absolute, the 实在, or you can think about the holder for all thoughts, all the products of thoughts. That's a rough translation. The defined or determined being, or in Chinese we call it 定在. All right, and a third one is being itself. It's most abstract, as inherited from previous philosophers, but it has more meaning and more explanation about that. And what else? Absolute, 实在, 定在, 存在. I got 4, right? Let me see. 实在、定在、存在、absolute. I forgot which one I missed. Well, let me continue. When I remembered, I'll put it back. All right? Okay. We have 4 relationships to remember. 4 relationships. That is, from the lower part, it's called relatively relative. Another one is absolutely relative. And the third one is relatively absolute. And the last one is absolutely absolute. All right? The 4 relationships describe the 2 sides, everything included. All right? And for the world, the system defines 2 worlds. One is called micro world, that's smaller things. Another is material or matter, consisted world, that's called macro world, MACRO. Okay, and also there's 2 principles supporting each one. That's a fundamental rules for each one. For the micro world, the small things, that is, movement is everything. And the movement resulted in matters, or prime matters, if you want to be exact. And for the micro world, the world consists of matters. That matter moves. Whatever moves is matter itself. All right? So the 2 things are different, but opposite each other, opposing to each other. Okay, next one we have 5 dimensions. And I briefly mentioned it in the past too. They are mathematical, logical, and temporal, and spatial. The last one is related to human, psychological. So 5 dimensions, remember that. And one new epistemology or episteme, that's called a pure 无性. I don't know how to translate this one, but that's a thing which explains how creativity has functioned. All right, we know the machines, the logic, the reasoning cannot explain creativity. How creativity comes around. And let's say for Einstein, he says there's no way to figure out that one. But this one, 无性 or pure 无性, explains why. It's sort of like the way when Archimedes discovered the ratio of gold within the alloy of the crown. The king, the emperor, wanted him to find out if the craftsman cheated on using gold for making the crown. Okay? He shouted, "Eureka!" That kind of feeling, that moment, explains things, the realization of something. It's called pure 无性. All right? Okay. For numbers, basically we have these. Some smaller ones like ethics. I think there's 2 points here. One is called value. The other is called movement. There's other some principles like rebirth principles, and also there's another one I just forgot for the moment. Okay, the idea of absolute in psychology, as I said before, is to switch our realization from seeking facts, as Bertrand Russell said, or the world, or the case, as Wittgenstein said, to movements. In other words, our worlds, or two worlds in this term, in our term, consist of nothing but a movement. That is fundamental. In other words, it's a function. It's a function. But in the worlds we talk about, it has basis for that function. But for the absolute, or absolutely absolute, there's no structure or no basis for this. It's a purely function. It's a function. All right. Before I go on, I think on the absolute, explain what it is. I need to prove it first. Do we have the absolute, as you said? Do we? Well, think about this way. See if I can prove it, if you agree with me. In the biggest of the uppermost part, if you divide the world, or whatever you know, everything included, we can say it can be divided into two parts, or two categories. One is relative. Everything is relative. I think you will agree, right? It has defects, it has imperfection, it needs to be improved, and a lot of other things we're not happy with, right? Including some evils, maybe. Okay, this is a part of the world where everybody knows that. The other part is the part, a lot of spiritual things like religion or philosophy or arts or whatever related to thoughts, spirit claims it as absolute. Or people in religion, people call it a God. In arts, they call it absolute beauty or something. All right. So that's the other part. It's perfection. And people dream of it, think they will have it, they want it, they will have it. That's ideal state of perfection. All right. So everything we know can be divided into two parts. One is the relative, one is the absolute. Agreed? Can you think of something else to add to this part? Like a third party thing? Neither absolute nor relative. Can you think of something like that? I bet you cannot. All right. Now, the second part. We, as humans, are part of the natural world. We were born on Earth. We exist in the universe. Do you think that human beings partake the two parts of the world we just mentioned? That is the absolute part and the relative part. Or are we mature or developed enough to be included, to have those parts in us? Do you agree or not? Well, let's say you agree. Maybe you don't, but let me assume you agree. If you agree, then you probably think the relative part is your body. You want to live longer, your eyes are better, can see far more distance. You want to hear more, maybe far away you can hear it. You want your nose to be more sensitive smells, better than a dog maybe. That's called the relative part. Alright? You have your body. The bodily part is the relative part. And the rest of the material is the material world. The other part in you, in your human being, is your spirit or soul or thinking or will or consciousness, whatever it is. That part belongs to the absolute, if there's anything which can belong to this category. You probably agree that it belongs to this world. Do you think so? You don't want your body to belong to this world, do you? Definitely not. Okay, so that is the part. So your spirit, your mental products belong to this world of the absolute. So that's my point. Okay, so the premise I mentioned is that you agree with me that human beings are consisted of the two parts too, which is the part of the world. If you think you are like a stone, like a tree, you don't have the other part. You are not mature enough to have the two parts of the world. You are not developed fully, like a bee or ant. That's another case. But I believe you probably do. You think, since you already have consciousness, you have your brain, you can think about almost everything you wanted to. You probably agree with me that you have the two parts too. Alright, so the mental products, your mind is the part. I'm going to ascribe it to the absolute part. That's how I get the idea. Okay, this is one of the proof. Another one actually. I give to the absolute exists. Okay, previously I talked about how to solve the mental problem I had from the paradox of thinking / consciousness. That's another proof. So this is the second one. Alright? Okay. Since time is up, I'll stop here. Next time I'll explain what the absolute means to us. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.